The council room was quiet until Ambassador Kelrath hit his fist on the black table. His green scales turned almost black with anger. He was a dragon, tall and powerful, and right now he looked ready to burn everything down. 3 of our babies are gone, he said. His voice shook with rage. Someone took them from our nursery world while the humans were visiting. Counselor Vexitara was made of living crystal. She glowed with worry. You cannot think the humans did this. They have been our friends for 10 years. The timing is clear, Kelrath growled. The humans came 3 days ago. Yesterday, our most precious young ones disappeared. We found human DNA at the nursery entrance. Only human DNA. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the Earth section of the council. His face was serious and tired. Next to him, Lieutenant Amy Sanders looked nervous. Her hands gripped her chair tight. Ambassador Kelrath, Jake said as he stood up slowly, I promise you nobody from my crew would hurt your children. We respect all life. Just words, Kelrath said with anger. Your kind has a past. You used to cage animals for fun. Maybe you saw a chance to take rare creatures for yourselves. Amy's face turned red. That is not fair. Humans stopped doing those terrible things hundreds of years ago. The dragon's tail moved back and forth like a whip. Then explain the DNA. Explain why 3 newborn babies vanished the moment humans landed on our world. Jake held up his hands. We will help with your investigation. You have my word. If someone from our team did this, they will be punished. But Kelrath was not done talking. Everyone in the galaxy knows what humans do. You make friends with predators. You bond with creatures that should fear you. Maybe you thought our children would make good pets. The words hung in the air like poison. Dragons were famous for protecting their young. Baby dragons took many years to grow up. Each one was precious. To lose even one was horrible. To lose 3 was a disaster. We are starting a full search, Kelrath announced. Every human ship will be scanned. Every crew member will be questioned. And if we find that you hurt our children... He did not finish, but everyone understood the threat. The council meeting ended in chaos. The friendship between humans and dragons was now hanging by a thread. Jake and his crew were told to stay in their rooms while dragon security started investigating. In his temporary room, Jake looked out at the 2 moons. Amy came in without knocking. She looked troubled. Captain, I checked all the crew records. Everyone is accounted for. Nobody left the building during the time the babies went missing. Then how did our DNA get there? Jake asked quietly. I do not know, but I know our people. None of them would do this. Jake nodded slowly. I believe that too. Which means someone is trying to make us look guilty. But why? Before Amy could answer, an urgent message flashed on their screens. It came from Drakmor, the nursery world. The search teams had found something. The missing babies had been located in the old mining area on the far side of the planet. That area was dangerous. The mines had collapsed years ago and nobody lived there anymore. That makes no sense, Amy said while reading the report. Why would anyone take them to such a dangerous place? Jake grabbed his jacket. Only one way to find out. Let's go. They met Kelrath at the transport station. The ambassador's eyes were wild with fear and anger. If your people hurt them, he said in a low, dangerous voice, there will be war. Let us find them first, Jake replied. Then we can talk about who is to blame. The trip to the mining area took 2 hours. The rescue team had dragon security, human diplomats, and medical workers from many different species. As they went down into the old tunnels, everyone was tense and worried. The tracking signals led them deeper underground. They passed broken support beams and warning signs in many languages. The air became thick and hot. Even the dragons who loved heat found it uncomfortable. There, Kelrath said, pointing ahead. That is dragonfire. The babies are alive. They rushed forward with weapons ready, expecting the worst. What they found made them all stop and stare. In a small cave lit by the soft glow of the baby dragons, a human sat on the ground. He was young, maybe 25 years old, with sandy hair and kind brown eyes. Around him, sleeping peacefully, were 3 baby dragons. Each one was about the size of a large cat. The human looked up when the rescue team entered. He did not look guilty or scared. He looked relieved. Thank God, he said softly, being careful not to wake the sleeping babies. I have been trying to figure out how to get them home safely. Kelrath moved forward fast, but Jake caught his arm. Wait, the captain said. Look at them. The baby dragons were not hurt. More than that, they looked happy and calm. Their small chests moved up and down as they slept peacefully. One baby with copper-colored scales had its tiny head resting on the human's lap. Another one, colored midnight blue, was curled against his side. The third one, emerald green like Kelrath, was draped across his shoulders. "Step away from them," Kelrath commanded. His voice was shaking. "Move slowly." The human, whose name badge said Danny Fletcher, botanist from the horizon, shook his head gently. "I cannot. If I move too fast, I might wake them. They have been through something terrible. Terrible." Kelrath's voice got louder. "You kidnapped them." "No," Danny said firmly, looking right at the ambassador. "I saved them." Amy stepped forward. Her curiosity was stronger than her caution. "What happened, Danny? Why did you take them?" Danny carefully adjusted how he was sitting, supporting the baby on his lap with one hand. "I did not take them. I found them. 3 nights ago I could not sleep. I went for a walk in the gardens near the nursery. That is when I heard it." "Heard what?" Jake asked, crying. "Whimpering sounds. I followed the noise and found these 3 in a cargo container near the service entrance. Someone was trying to smuggle them off the planet." The cave became silent except for the soft breathing of the sleeping dragons. "I recognized the smuggler's ship," Danny continued. "It belonged to the Kravik Syndicate. I have studied enough about aliens to know what they do with rare species. If I had raised an alarm, the smugglers would have been warned. They would have run away or killed the babies to destroy evidence. So I took them instead." Kelrath's scales changed color with mixed emotions. "You expect me to believe you did this to help them?" "Believe what you want," Danny said quietly. "But I spent the last 3 days keeping these babies alive. Do you know how specific their food needs are? How exact their temperature needs to be? I have barely slept trying to copy their nursery conditions with equipment I built from mining supplies." One of the dragon medical workers stepped forward. She scanned the babies with a handheld device. Her eyes went wide. "Ambassador, they are healthy. More than healthy. Their heart rates are strong. Body temperature is perfect, no signs of stress or hunger. But why bring them here?" Amy asked. "Why not contact us right away?" Danny's face became dark. "Because I did not know who to trust. The smugglers had inside information about the nursery security. They knew exactly when the guards changed shifts, where the cameras could not see. That takes planning. Resources. Maybe someone on the inside was helping them." "That is a serious accusation," Kelrath said, but his voice had lost some of its anger. "I know. That is why I hid. I figured the safest place was somewhere nobody would think to look. These old mining tunnels have natural minerals that block tracking signals. I knew you would eventually expand the search and find us. I just needed to keep them safe until then." The copper baby stirred, making a small chirping sound. Danny immediately started humming a soft tune. His hand gently stroked the dragon's back in slow, steady movements. The baby settled back to sleep. "Where did you learn that?" the dragon medical worker asked. Her voice was full of wonder. "That is a traditional dragon lullaby. We use it in our nurseries." Danny smiled a little. "I studied your culture before the diplomatic mission. I read everything I could about dragon development and how to care for them. When these little ones were scared and crying, I tried everything I had learned." Kelrath moved closer. His huge body cast shadows on the cave walls. He knelt down, bringing his face level with Danny's. For a long moment, the ambassador just stared at the human who had protected dragon children. "They have bonded with you," Kelrath said quietly. "See how they sleep? That level of trust takes weeks to develop normally. They feel safe with you." "I did my best," Danny said, "but they need their real home, their real family." The emerald baby on Danny's shoulders woke up at that moment. Its large bright eyes blinked open and focused on Kelrath. But instead of reaching for its own kind, the baby dragon nuzzled closer to Danny's neck and made a happy chirping sound. Kelrath's eyes filled with tears he did not shed. In all my long life, I have never seen a baby dragon act this way with another species. They are very careful about who they trust. "Danny is good with animals," Amy said. "Back on the horizon, the ship's cat will not sit with anyone else. Even the captain's dog follows him everywhere." Jake nodded. "It is true. We joke that he can talk to animals. We did not know it worked with dragons, too." "It is not magic," Danny said, feeling uncomfortable with all the attention. "I just pay attention to what they need. The copper one likes pressure and warmth. The blue one prefers gentle sounds and dim light. The green one here is curious and always wants to see what is happening." The medical worker scanned the babies again and showed her results to Kelrath. Ambassador, look at these stress levels. They are lower than in our own nursery. This human has created a perfect environment with almost no resources. Kelrath sat back, his whole view of the situation changing. I owe you an apology, Danny Fletcher. And I owe all humans an apology. I let fear control my thinking. You were protecting your children, Danny said. I understand that. I would have done the same thing. Still, I accused your people of a horrible crime without proof. The council must be told the truth. Jake's communicator buzzed. He stepped away to take the call. When he came back, his face was serious. Ambassador, we found the smuggler's ship. It was hidden at the secondary spaceport, mixed in with normal cargo ships. Kravik Syndicate, just like Danny suspected. Station security is moving to catch them now. Were they working alone? Kelrath demanded. That is the worrying part. Our intelligence says they had help from someone with high-level access to Drakmore security. The investigation continues. The copper baby stirred again, this time waking up fully. She looked around the cave with wide eyes, then up at Danny. A small puff of smoke came from her nose, not from fear or anger, but in what the medical workers recognized as contentment. We should take them back to the nursery, the medical worker said gently. They need to be with their family and other young dragons. Danny nodded, but when he tried to stand up, all three babies immediately protested. The copper one climbed higher on his chest. The blue one wrapped its tail around his arm. The emerald one dug its tiny claws into his shoulder, refusing to let go. It seems, Kelrath said with what might have been amusement, they have other ideas. The trip back to the dragon nursery was not what the rescue team expected. The three babies refused to leave Danny. They cried sadly whenever anyone tried to take them. Finally, Kelrath made the practical decision to let the human carry them back. Danny sat in the transport shuttle with a dragon baby in his lap, one across his shoulders and one against his side. The dragon medical workers watched in amazement as he naturally adjusted his position to keep all three comfortable during the flight. This has never happened before, whispered Dr. Kira Venn, a human scientist who had joined the rescue team. She sat next to Amy, writing notes quickly. Dragon babies usually bond only with their immediate family and assigned caretakers. The fact that they have accepted Danny so completely goes against everything we know. Amy watched her crewmate with mixed feelings of pride and worry. What does this mean for him? For them? I do not know, Kira admitted. In dragon culture, the bond between a baby and its caretaker is sacred. It is not something that can just be ignored. Kelrath heard the conversation. He turned from his position at the front of the shuttle. His expression was thoughtful. Dr. Venn is right. What has happened here is extraordinary. These babies have imprinted on Danny. In our culture, this creates duties on both sides. Duties? Jake asked carefully. The babies now consider him part of their family, and by our laws and customs, Danny has responsibilities toward them as well. Kelrath paused. Of course, I cannot force a human to follow dragon traditions. But I must ask. Danny Fletcher, what are your intentions? Danny looked up from the copper baby who was chewing happily on his sleeve. Sir, I do not know much about dragon customs, but I know I cannot just abandon them. Not after everything we have been through together. If there is a way I can help care for them, I would like to. Even if it means staying on Drakmore for a long time, Kelrath asked. Baby dragons need constant care for their first year. The meaning settled over the shuttle. Danny would have to leave his ship, his crew, possibly his career to care for creatures from another world. Captain? Danny looked to Jake for guidance. Jake studied his young botanist. In the 3 years Danny had served on the horizon, he had proven himself reliable, dedicated, and unusually kind to all forms of life. But this was asking a lot. The choice is yours, Danny, Jake said finally. The horizon can manage without you if this is what you want, but you need to understand what you are committing to. I do, Danny said quietly, or at least I am willing to learn. These little ones needed someone when they were in danger. I cannot walk away now. The emerald baby chirped and nuzzled his cheek as if understanding and approving of his decision. When they arrived at the nursery, a crowd was waiting. Dragons of all ages, from ancient elders to young teenagers, stood anxiously. The moment the shuttle doors opened, everyone gasped. The baby's parents pushed forward. Their names were Kortha and Venak. Kortha had beautiful golden scales and Venak had deep red scales. Kortha's eyes were wild with relief and worry when she saw her children. My babies, she cried, reaching forward with her claws. But when she tried to take the copper baby from Danny's arms, the baby dragon wailed and held on to the human with surprising strength. The sound was heartbreaking, a cry of pure fear. Danny immediately soothed her with gentle words and the humming tune he had used before. "It is okay, little one. This is your mother. She has been so worried about you." Kortha froze, her eyes meeting Danny's. In that moment, something passed between them, an understanding that went beyond words. "You saved them," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You kept them safe when I could not." "Any good person would have done the same," Danny replied. "No," Vanek said, his deep voice strong with belief. "Most would have alerted authorities and walked away, leaving it to others. You risked your safety, your reputation, your freedom to protect children, not your own. That is true honor." The copper baby finally let her mother touch her, but she still refused to leave Danny's arms. She seemed to want both her birth parent and her protector close. Dr. Kira approached Kelrath. "Ambassador, I have been studying bonds between species for 20 years. What I am seeing here is remarkable. The babies have not replaced their parents. They have expanded their family to include Danny. It is additional, not replacing." Kelrath nodded slowly, which gives us an unusual situation. Traditionally, when a baby bonds with multiple caretakers, all parties share in raising the young. It becomes a group responsibility. Kortha looked at Danny with her ancient, wise eyes. "Would you agree to be part of our family, Danny Fletcher? To help us raise our children at least until they are old enough to be on their own?" The weight of the question settled on Danny's shoulders. He looked down at the 3 small dragons who had come to trust him so completely. The blue one was already dozing again, completely relaxed against his side. The emerald one was watching him with curious eyes. The copper one chirped softly, her small tail wrapping around his wrist. "I would be honored," Danny said. The gathered dragons made approving growls and beat their wings. It was, Kelrath later explained, the same as applause. Over the next few weeks, an arrangement took shape that had never happened before. Danny was given rooms next to the nursery, a small but comfortable place where the babies could visit whenever they wanted. He split his time between learning dragon child-rearing practices and teaching the dragon caretakers about his own methods. The babies grew strong under the shared care. They spent their mornings with their parents and the traditional nursery staff, learning dragon culture and developing their natural abilities. Their afternoons were often spent with Danny, who added play and exploration that the more formal dragon approach sometimes missed. Amy visited whenever her work allowed. On one visit, she found Danny in the nursery gardens. All 3 babies were tumbling around him as he read from a datapad. "What are you teaching them today?" she asked. Danny looked up with a smile. "Earth biology. They are fascinated by creatures that do not breathe fire or fly. The blue one is particularly interested in ocean life. I started calling her Luna. You named them? Well, their dragon names are beautiful, but about 17 syllables long. I needed something I could say quickly." Kortha and Vanek approved. "The copper one is Ember, and the emerald one is Sage." As if hearing their names, the 3 babies looked up. Ember climbed into Danny's lap while Luna and Sage settled on either side of him. "They have grown," Amy observed. "They are nearly twice the size they were when we found you." "Healthy food and lots of love," Danny said. "Same recipe that works for any baby, no matter what species. The council is calling you a hero. The story of the human who saved the dragon babies has spread across the galaxy. You are famous," Danny made a face. "I did not do it for fame. I did it because it was right. I know. That is what makes it even more special." Amy paused. "The captain wanted me to tell you that your position on the horizon is still open, whenever you are ready to return." Danny looked at the 3 small dragons who were now play-fighting with each other. Their movements were still clumsy but getting stronger every day. "I appreciate that, but I think I am needed here a while longer, at least until they are ready." "Ready for what?" "To be independent. To not need me anymore." There was sadness in his voice, knowing that the bond he loved would change as the babies grew up. Luna, perhaps sensing his mood, stopped playing and climbed back to nuzzle his hand. The gesture of comfort from a creature barely 2 months old was touching. That evening, as Danny prepared to go back to his rooms, Kelrath approached him. The ambassador's attitude had changed completely from their first meeting. Where once there had been suspicion and anger, now there was respect and something like affection. "Danny Fletcher, I must speak with you about something important." "Of course." Ambassador, the investigation into the smuggling attempt is finished. We discovered that a member of our own security team was working with the Kravik Syndicate. He has been arrested and will face justice. I am glad you found the traitor, as am I. But there is more. The Syndicate's record showed this was not their first attempt to steal dragon babies. They have been operating for years, sometimes successfully. Because of what you did, we have shut down a major smuggling ring. Dozens of species will benefit from this. Danny shifted uncomfortably. I was just trying to save 3 babies, and in doing so you saved many more. The Council wishes to honor you formally. There will be a ceremony next month. That is really not necessary. It is necessary, Kelrath interrupted firmly. Not for you, but for the galaxy. They need to see that honor and compassion exist, that species can look beyond their own kind to protect the innocent. You represent the best of what humanity can be. Before Danny could respond, 3 small bodies tackled him from behind. The babies had escaped their evening caretakers and found him, as they always seemed to do. Kelrath laughed, a sound like distant thunder. They have perfect timing. I believe they wanted to show their own gratitude. As Danny sat on the ground, covered in affectionate baby dragons, he realized his life had changed in ways he never imagined. He had come to this world as a junior botanist, unimportant in the big picture of galactic politics. Now he was a guardian, a hero, a bridge between species, but more importantly, he was loved by 3 small creatures who did not care about fame or politics. They just knew he had kept them safe when they were afraid. And that, Danny thought as Ember fell asleep on his chest, was worth everything. 6 months passed since the rescue, and the nursery world of Drakmor had become a center of cooperation between species. Scientists, diplomats, and curious visitors from across the galaxy came to see the bond between a human and dragon babies. Danny had adapted to his role more completely than anyone expected. His rooms now looked like a mix between a laboratory and a dragon's den, filled with research materials, custom-designed toys for the babies, and the strange scorch marks that came with raising creatures who were learning to control their fire breath. The babies had grown a lot. Ember, the copper-scaled female, was now the size of a large dog. Her wings were developing the strength needed for flight. Luna, the blue-scaled male, had proven to be the smart one of the group, often found studying with Danny rather than playing. Sage, the emerald female, was the adventurous one, constantly getting into places she should not be. On this particular morning, Danny was teaching an unofficial lesson in the nursery gardens. A small crowd of young dragons and their caretakers had gathered to watch, fascinated by his teaching methods. Now remember, Danny said, holding up a metal plate, fire control is not about power. It is about precision. Ember, would you like to demonstrate? The copper baby stepped forward proudly. She took a deep breath and breathed out a thin stream of flame, perfectly controlled. It heated the metal plate to exactly the temperature Danny had asked for without melting it. The watching younglings made excited sounds. Traditional dragon training focused on power and intensity. Danny's approach, emphasizing control and purpose, was new and different. Excellent, Danny praised, offering Ember a treat. Who wants to try next? Luna and Sage took their turns, each showing their growing skill. The watching caretakers murmured with approval. Dr. Kira Venn, who had stayed on Drakmor to study the bonding, approached with her ever-present datapad. Danny, your teaching methods are being used by nurseries across the Dragon Empire. Did you know that? Danny looked up, surprised. Really? I'm just doing what makes sense. That is exactly the point. You are approaching dragon development from a fresh view, not limited by centuries of tradition. Sometimes an outside view is exactly what is needed. Their conversation was interrupted by noise at the nursery entrance. Jake Morrison and Amy Sanders had arrived, along with several members of the Horizon crew. Captain, Danny called out, genuinely pleased. I did not know you were visiting today. Jake smiled, though his expression was serious. Surprise visit. Also, we need to talk. All of you, actually. He gestured to include Kira and the babies, who had immediately surrounded Danny protectively when strangers arrived. They moved to a private meeting room. The babies settled around Danny's chair, with Sage draping herself across his lap and Luna and Ember positioning themselves on either side. The Galactic Council has made a decision, Jake began. They want to establish a new program, an interspecies youth development initiative. The goal is to create places where young beings from different species can interact and learn from each other. That sounds wonderful, Danny said. But what does it have to do with me? They want you to lead the program, Amy said. You would be the director of the first facility, which would be built right here on Drakmore. Danny sat back, stunned. That is a huge responsibility. You have already proven you can do it, Kira added. What you have done with Ember, Luna, and Sage has shown the galaxy that care across species not only works, but can make development better for everyone involved. Kelrath entered the room. His timing was perfect as always. The decision is yours, Danny Fletcher. But I hope you will consider it. What you have done here has already changed the Dragon Empire. Imagine what you could do on a galactic scale. Danny looked down at Sage, who chirped questioningly. What about them? I cannot abandon them. You would not be, Kortha said, entering behind Kelrath. My children would stay with you if that is what they wish. They could be ambassadors for the program, proof of what is possible. Besides, Venek added, his rumbling voice gentle, they would never let you leave without them. We have learned to accept that our children have two families now. The babies seemed to sense the seriousness of the conversation. Luna climbed up to Danny's shoulder and nuzzled his ear. Ember pressed against his leg. Sage, still in his lap, looked up at him with her bright eyes. Can I think about it? Danny asked. Of course, Jake said. But Danny, whatever you decide, know that we are proud of you. You have done more for relations between species in 6 months than most diplomats achieve in a lifetime. After the meeting, Danny walked alone in the gardens. The babies trailed behind him. They seemed to understand he needed to think, giving him space while still staying close. What do you three think? He asked them, knowing they could not truly answer but finding comfort in talking to them anyway. Am I ready for something like this? Sage bounded forward and did a little flip, showing off the aerial move she had been practicing. Luna tilted his head thoughtfully, then gently bumped Danny's hand with his snout. Ember simply sat beside him, her presence a constant comfort. Danny laughed. You are right. I was just trying to keep you safe 6 months ago. If I can do that, maybe I can do this too. That evening, he gave his answer to the council. He would accept the position on one condition. The program had to truly focus on the well-being of the young, not on political agendas or publicity. The council readily agreed. Over the following year, the Interspecies Youth Development Center took shape. The building was a marvel of design for everyone, with environments suited for species that breathed water, flew through air, or burrowed underground. Danny worked without rest with architects, educators, and child development specialists from dozens of worlds. Ember, Luna, and Sage were growing rapidly. At 1-year-old, they were entering their teenage phase, still young by dragon standards but no longer helpless babies. They had become symbols of the program, often photographed with younglings from other species. On the center's opening day, representatives from across the galaxy gathered. The first group of participants included not just dragon younglings, but also crystal children from Lumina, aquatic youth from Delphin, and even a few human children whose parents worked in diplomatic services. Danny stood before the assembly. The 3 young dragons perched on specially designed platforms behind him. He was no longer the nervous junior botanist who had stumbled into an extraordinary situation. He had grown into his role as guardian, teacher, and now director. Today, he began, his voice steady and confident, we start something new, not a school, not a nursery, but a family that crosses the boundaries of biology and proves that care, respect, and love are universal. Ember punctuated his speech with a controlled burst of flame that formed a beautiful arc overhead. Luna and Sage joined in, creating a spectacular display that had the audience gasping in delight. Ambassador Kelrath approached the podium as Danny finished. 1 year ago, I stood before the council and accused humanity of the worst crime imaginable. I was wrong. Danny Fletcher showed me that honor and compassion know no species. He has not only returned our children to us, but has enriched our entire culture. The Dragon Empire is forever grateful. As the ceremony concluded and the younglings began to explore their new center, Danny found a quiet moment with his 3 charges. You 3 are going to help me run this place, right? He asked them. Ember chirped yes. Luna nuzzled his hand. Sage did a little victory dance that made Danny laugh. Good, because I could not do this without you. Dr. Kira approached with her data pad, as always. Danny, the early results are remarkable. The younglings from different species are already interacting positively. We are seeing cooperation, curiosity, and zero conflict. That is because they are learning from each other, Danny said. No preconceptions, no inherited hate. Just kids being kids, regardless of how many legs or wings or tentacles they have. As the sun set on Drakmor, casting the center in golden light, Danny reflected on how far he had come. From a chance discovery in the night to leading a galactic initiative, his life had taken a path he could never have imagined. But looking at Ember, Luna, and Sage, now strong and confident young dragons, he knew he would not change a thing. Sometimes the best journeys are the ones we never planned. 3 years had passed since the center's opening, and the Interspecies Youth Development Initiative had expanded beyond anyone's expectations. Facilities now operated on 12 worlds, each one following the principles Danny had established. Respect for individual development, celebration of diversity, and the fundamental belief that young beings from all species could learn from each other. Danny, now in his late 20s, had matured alongside his charges. Ember, Luna, and Sage were approaching their 5th year, considered young adults in dragon culture. They were no longer the tiny babies he had protected in a cave. Ember's wingspan stretched nearly 20 feet, her copper scales gleaming like polished metal. Luna had developed the deep blue coloring of a scholar dragon, his intellect matching any adult. Sage's emerald scales shimmered with health and energy as she led younger dragons in flight exercises. Yet despite their growth and increasing independence, the bond between them and Danny remained unbreakable. On this particular morning, Danny was in his office when an urgent message arrived from the Galactic Council. A new crisis had emerged on the outer rim world of Talaxis Prime. A natural disaster had orphaned dozens of younglings from 3 different species that had historically been at war with each other. The local authorities were overwhelmed and requesting help. "They want you to go personally," Jake said via holocall. The captain of the Horizon had become a close friend and advisor over the years. "This situation is delicate. These species have generations of conflict. You are the only one who has proven you can bridge those gaps." Danny studied the mission brief. Talaxis Prime was far from Drakmor and the conditions were harsh. But the images of frightened younglings, traumatized and alone, struck a familiar chord. "I will go," he said, "but I am bringing help." Within hours, Danny had assembled a team. Dr. Kira Venn would handle medical and psychological assessment. Amy Sanders, now a commander, would manage logistics and security. And Ember, Luna, and Sage had insisted on coming. Their ability to communicate with younglings made them invaluable. The journey to Talaxis Prime took 2 weeks. During that time, Danny prepared his team for what they might encounter. The 3 species, the reptilian Scar, the insectoid Vex, and the mammalian Orin, had ceased open warfare only a decade ago. Their peace was fragile, built on mutual exhaustion rather than true understanding. "The younglings will not know diplomacy or politics," Danny explained during a briefing. "They will only know fear and loss. Our job is to show them that safety can come from unexpected places." When they arrived, the situation was worse than reported. The disaster, a massive earthquake, had destroyed the main settlement. Nearly 100 younglings had survived, but they were separated into 3 groups, each species clustering together and viewing the others with suspicion and fear. The local coordinator, an exhausted Orin female named Petra, met them at the relief camp. "We have kept them separated for their safety. Every time we try to bring them together, fighting breaks out." Danny surveyed the camp. The younglings looked shocked and hurt, many bearing minor injuries. But what struck him most was the fear in their eyes, a fear that went beyond the disaster. "They are teaching each other to hate," Danny said quietly. "The adults' prejudices, transferred to children who should be healing together. What do you propose?" Petra asked, desperation in her voice, "Something radical. Trust me." Over the next 3 days, Danny implemented a plan that horrified the local authorities, but which he believed was necessary. He dismantled the separations and created a single space where all the younglings would live together, but he did not force interaction. Instead, he let Ember, Luna, and Sage take the lead. The 3 young dragons moved among the traumatized younglings with remarkable gentleness. Ember, with her warm presence, comforted the Scar children who responded to heat and strength. Luna, with his calm intellect, engaged the Vex younglings who valued logic and pattern. Sage, adventurous and playful, drew out the Orin children who needed joy and movement. Within a week, something remarkable happened. A small scar youngling named Kresh, who had been viciously hostile to the other species, was found sharing his food with a Vex child. When Petra asked why, he simply said, "Ember told me it was strong to share." The breakthrough came during a storm 2 weeks into the mission. The temporary shelters were not good enough, and the younglings were terrified by the thunder and lightning. Without thinking, they huddled together, species mixing naturally as they sought comfort and shared fear. Danny sat in the center of the largest shelter, surrounded by dozens of younglings from all 3 species. Ember, Luna, and Sage formed a protective circle around them, their presence reassuring to the frightened children. "Tell us a story," a small Orin voice pleaded. "Something not scary." So Danny told them the story of 3 dragon babies who were lost and afraid, and the unlikely guardian who helped them find their way home. He told them about fear overcome by trust, about differences becoming strengths, about families built by choice rather than biology. As the storm raged outside, the younglings listened, completely focused. When Danny finished, a Vex child raised a delicate limb. "Were you scared? When you found the dragons?" "Terrified," Danny admitted. "I did not know if I could help them. I did not know their language or their needs. But I knew they were frightened and alone, and that was enough. Like us," a Scar youngling said softly. "Exactly like you. And just like those babies found safety, so will you. All of you, together." Over the following months, the Talaxis Prime project became another testament to Danny's approach. The younglings formed bonds across species lines, creating friendships that would have been impossible for their parents' generation. When permanent housing was built, the children insisted on mixed species families, refusing to be separated. News of the success reached the Galactic Council, which voted unanimously to expand the Interspecies Youth Development Initiative to conflict zones across the galaxy. Danny's team grew from a handful of specialists to hundreds of trained professionals, all sharing his vision of a future built on understanding rather than fear. On the 5-year anniversary of the original rescue, a special ceremony was held on Drakmor. Ember, Luna, and Sage, now fully grown dragons, stood proudly beside Danny as he addressed the assembly. 5 years ago, I was a nobody, a junior botanist who stumbled into a situation way over his head. I had no training for what I did, no special qualifications. All I had was a belief that younglings, regardless of species, deserved to be safe and loved. The 3 dragons rumbled their agreement, a sound felt as much as heard. What I learned from Ember, Luna, and Sage is that bonds of family and friendship are not limited by biology. They are limited only by our willingness to try, to understand, to care. Every youngling we have helped since then has reinforced that lesson. Ambassador Kelrath stepped forward, his scales now showing the silver of advanced age. "Danny Fletcher, you have done more than save 3 babies. You have shown the galaxy a new way forward. You have proven that the future belongs not to those who cling to division, but to those who embrace connection." The ceremony concluded with a flight demonstration. Ember, Luna, and Sage took to the skies, their movements perfectly synchronized after years of flying together. Younglings from dozens of species watched in awe as the 3 dragons painted the sky with fire, creating patterns of light and color. Danny watched them with pride and a touch of sadness. They did not need him anymore, not the way they once had. They were independent, capable, magnificent beings who had found their place in the world. As if sensing his thoughts, the 3 dragons descended, landing gracefully beside him. Ember nuzzled his shoulder with her massive head. Luna wrapped his tail gently around Danny's waist. Sage chirped, a sound impossibly small from such a large creature, but one that took Danny back to those first frightening nights in the cave. "We may not need you the same way," Ember rumbled in dragon language, which Danny had learned to understand fluently. "But we will always choose you. You are our family now and always." Dr. Kira approached with her datapad, though these days it was more out of habit than necessity. "Danny, we have received requests from 47 new worlds wanting to establish centers. The movement you started is becoming truly galactic." Danny looked out at the younglings playing in the gardens, a rainbow of species interacting with the ease that comes from knowing no different. Human children played tag with dragon adolescents. Crystal younglings taught harmonics to aquatic and insect children. Everywhere he looked, he saw the future he had hoped for. "It is not my movement," Danny said quietly. "It belongs to all of them. To every youngling who had the courage to trust someone different. To every parent who chose hope over fear. To every teacher who believed in possibility. And to 3 baby dragons who trusted a stranger in the dark, Amy added, joining the group. That too, Danny agreed with a smile. As the celebration continued into the evening, Danny found a quiet moment alone with his 3 dragons. They settled in their old spot in the gardens, the place where they had spent countless hours when they were still learning to control their wings and their fire. You know, Danny said, I have been thinking about what comes next. The centers are running smoothly. We have trained staff on every world. Maybe it is time for me to step back, let the next generation take over. 3 dragon heads turned toward him in alarm. Not step away completely, he clarified quickly. Just step back from daily management. I would like to do more field work, help new initiatives get started, and I would like to write, document what we have learned so others can build on it. And where we go, you go, Luna stated firmly. If you will have me, Danny said. Always, Sage said simply. Ember's response was to curl around him protectively, just as she had done as a tiny baby. Some things, it seemed, never changed. In the years that followed, Danny Fletcher became a legend, though he never sought the title. The human who saved the dragons, they called him. The bridge between worlds. The guardian of the young. But to Ember, Luna, and Sage, he was simply Danny. The one who had kept them safe when they were small and afraid. The one who had shown them that family was built not from scales or skin, but from love and loyalty. And to the thousands of younglings who grew up in the centers he established, he was proof that the universe could be kind, that strangers could become family, and that fear of the different could be transformed into celebration of diversity. The story of 3 lost babies and the human who protected them became a bedtime tale told across the galaxy. And every time it was told, the message remained the same. The worst fears often hide the greatest opportunities for connection, and sometimes the most unlikely guardians become the truest family. Danny Fletcher had started as a nobody, stumbled into heroism and built a legacy that would outlive him by generations. But if you asked him what he was most proud of, he would simply point to 3 magnificent dragons and say, I helped raise them right. And that, in the end, was the greatest achievement of all. Years later, when Danny was old and gray, he still walked the gardens of the first center on Drakmor. Ember, Luna, and Sage, now ancient and wise by dragon standards, still walked beside him. Their scales had deepened in color. Their wings were broader, their fire burned hotter, but the bond remained unchanged. Young dragons, descendants of those first students, would approach Danny with reverence. He would greet each one warmly, asking about their studies, their friendships, their dreams. To them, he was history come alive, the human who had changed everything. On quiet evenings, Danny would sit beneath the stars with his 3 dragons. They would reminisce about that night in the cave, about the fear they had all felt, about the trust that had grown between them. Do you ever regret it? Sage asked one evening. Giving up your career, your ship, your human life for us. Danny looked at his 3 companions, at the center they had built together, at the hundreds of younglings sleeping peacefully nearby. Younglings who would grow up knowing that species boundaries were illusions, that family was chosen, that love transcended biology. Regret? Danny smiled. Not for a single moment. You 3 gave me purpose. You gave me a family. You gave me a reason to be better than I was. You gave us the same, Ember said softly. As the night deepened, 4 figures sat together in comfortable silence. A human and 3 dragons bound not by biology but by something stronger, by trust forged in darkness, by love chosen freely, by a family created from the most unlikely beginnings. The galaxy had changed because of them. Wars had been prevented, species had learned to coexist, younglings had been saved. But in that quiet moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was that 5 years ago, a young man had found 3 frightened babies and made a choice. Not the easy choice, not the safe choice, but the right choice. And in making that choice, he had proven that one person acting with courage and compassion could change the world. The stars shone down on Drakmor. In the distance, younglings of a dozen species slept peacefully, dreaming of a future where differences were celebrated, not feared. And in the garden, a family rested together, bound by the strongest force in the universe, love.